is way more than what is in West Africa, which is, I think, 18, 19 countries, and is way more than what is then in the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, however many countries that might be, about 20 countries. So North Africa is really where it is at, and where it is going to be when these hotels in the future. And indeed, although when you add it together now in 2017, you had West Africa and the rest of sub-Saharan Africa together, they're more than North Africa. The fact is that there are more rooms under construction in North Africa than there are in sub-Saharan Africa. In fact, 75% of the pipeline in North Africa is under construction. So 50% of these boys here, 75% of these, sorry about this, it's fading, 75% of these are under construction, only 50% of sub-Saharan Africa are actually under construction. The rest are pieces of paper which are meaningless unless something, a hotel actually opened. Okay. Looking at the breakdown here of sub-Saharan Africa, what we've broken it down into is, because our focus is on West Africa, we've broken that down in Anglophone, Francophone and Lusophone West Africa. And then the rest of Africa, which is Central Africa, where very little is happening, East Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, etc. Southern Africa, in Southern Africa is not just South Africa, but it includes Angola, where there has been quite a big deal, which contributes to the 29%. Otherwise, not a huge amount happening in non-Angolan Southern Africa. But if you look at Anglophone West Africa, we've got 5 countries in Anglophone West Africa: Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Gambia. Those 5 countries, in other words, 10% of the continent, 10% of the countries in Africa have 24% of the pipeline. Why? Nigeria. In Lusophone Africa, which is, as far as this discussion is concerned, well, there are 5 Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa, 3 of them in West Africa, Cape Verde, Sao Tome, and Guinea-Bissau. So we have 3 countries, which is about 6% of the total number of countries, fighting above their weight with 7%. Why? Cape Verde, where there's an awful lot happening, and hopefully the panel will talk about that. Francophone West Africa, 10 countries, 20% of the total, but only 12% of the pipeline in terms of number of rooms. Looking, I was just showing those in a different fashion. You can see that Lusophone, actually, as I said, because Cape Verde is there with an awful lot of development, they come in quite high, only 3 countries. Anglophone Africa way above the rest. Why? Nigeria, with 61 deals by some international hotel chains for hotels opening in the future. Burkina Faso, seems to be nothing happening there. Other countries, big ones, which certainly we're going to be talking about, well, Senegal has the largest pipeline by far. I should have worked out the percentage of the total, but you can see very little sign there, just a couple of regional chains. Looking at the top 10 countries, this is top 10 countries in Africa as a whole. You'll see here that of the 5 North African countries, you've got 4 of them in the top 10. You've got Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria. In only one of the Francophone / Lusophone countries in West Africa makes it onto the top 10, and that's Cape Verde again. In terms of who is doing it, On our panel today, we have, who have we got on our panel today in terms of the top? Yes, Andrew Carlson Residor is with us today, so he's going to talk about that. And Mangalis, a hotel group that many of you have probably never heard of. It's not there's no such thing as a Mangalis hotel. And I'm going to be asking Wessam shortly about well, what's it all about? What is Mangalis? And then finally, just showing who has actually been doing anything in Africa. Okay, we've been talking about these guys who have been signing deals, and virtually none of these rooms, hotels, are yet open. So in terms of who's been actually achieving things in the last few years in Africa, this is Africa as a whole. We've got Accor opening a lot of hotels in North Africa, long-term relationships with Algeria and Morocco. Got Louvre, Golden Tulip mostly, have been opening hotels. And then one of the main ones there is a Carlson Residor, who are opening a hotel in Africa every 60 days, they tell us. That's not bad, is it? Marriott hasn't been too bad, but there's a lot of Coachburg. Robin Coelho from HGI Consulting, based here in Lagos. West Ham Orchestra, based in Barcelona. Welcome to Africa, from Mangalis, and Danny Adepoju from Estate Intel, also based in Lagos. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, goodness. West Africa. Okay, West Ham. Congratulations on your recent award.
Thank you.
Or we're going to hold it up for us to see. Did you bring it with you?
No,
You
unfortunately.
were awarded at the Africa Investment Forum and Awards last week. You got the Golden Award. Tell us about it.
It's true. It was a very nice surprise actually in Paris. We were invited for this first time event which happened in Paris. And I was very surprised because nobody were aware of what's going to happen, especially seeing the nominees who were on the panels. We made it. That's the Golden Award.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Mangalis, as I said, probably not many people have heard of Mangalis. Relatively new kid on the block. I do remember you launching the group at an investment forum 4 or 5 years ago now. And Mangalis, if we look at who's doing what in terms of signed deals in West Africa, your name keeps popping up as having deals in various countries. Ivory Coast. Where else? I can't read my own notes because I use shorthand. Where have you got deals signed in West Africa? Signed.
The signed deals that are coming up. I mean, we signed in Senegal. We have the first hotels. Then Abidjan, Guinea, Kinshasa, Pointe Noire. Then we have Cotonou. Then another one in Abidjan coming up next year in 5 stars. So we have a few good things now.
So you're based in Barcelona and you're looking at Francophone West Africa, why is that?
Yes. The main company, the mother company, Telium, which is a Senegalese Ivorian company, based, we have 2 hubs.
So you are an African hotel company?
We are 100%, we have 100% DNA from Africa. And we started 5 years ago to develop 3 different brands which we own meanwhile. 3 stars, 4 stars, and 5 stars. The Yas Hotel has been developed completely in a modular construction concept, which is 100% made in Barcelona. And we've been working and been very busy, quietly busy in Barcelona to prepare all these brands, the specification and everything in the last 5 years. We started 2012, so 2013 and 14 we finished all the conceptual work. We have acquired 13 hotels which are owned. They are planned and constructed and will be run by the company. In the last 7 months, we opened 3 different brands which are on 3 different markets in Africa. In Senegal, the 3 stars Yas Hotel is open since last December. We opened about 4 months ago the 4 stars Scene Hotel in Abidjan. And before that, we opened the 5 stars Noom Hotel in Conakry.
And one of the reasons you have expanded or you have such a big pipeline is because you own your hotels, correct?
Yes, this is the first part of the development, which we have been focusing to acquire 13 hotels with 1,844 rooms. They are all signed, the financial setup is done. They are definitely in the pipeline now. Some of them are 80% ready, the other ones is maybe 40%, 45%. The second phase of the development going into now signing contract with third party, sharing with them our expertise, and adding our portfolio to our portfolio some new hotels with third parties.
You're probably one of the very few multiple hotel owners in West Africa. Andrew, Carlson-Residor, you guys don't invest, do you? You're looking for management agreements. Now, you are what are you these days? You used to be Scandinavian, then for a little while you were American, now you're Chinese. You're based in Johannesburg, where
based
some of them...
Cape Town.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, you're based in Cape Town, that's right. How do you cope in Francophone, Lusophone, West Africa, coming from that background?
Well, I think as a company we've had shareholder changes, but the DNA of the company is still very much the same. So we're still a publicly listed company on the Stockholm Stock Exchange. We still see ourselves as being sort of Scandinavian in our approach to doing business, being innovative, being positive, being creative. As a company, we have 144 nationalities working within the company. So doing business in Francophone or Portuguese-speaking Africa is not that more complicated than us doing business doing business in Saudi Arabia or doing business in Russia, where you need to be able to employ people that can speak the language, understand the culture, and want to grow with us. And so we've set ourselves up. We actually have people that speak Portuguese or speak French that can actually go into Francophone markets and be successful. So we see Francophone Africa as actually a big opportunity, because besides our core, we don't really see that much activity from any of the other global players besides ourselves in Francophone West Africa. And we really see ourselves as being sort of the alternative to a core, who have been there for many, many years, got quite a big portfolio. We're coming in with newer brands which are a little bit fresh, and we think that we can actually add value, and we've been quite successful with the hotels that we have open in Francophone West Africa.
And you're in Bamako, been there quite a long time, Abidjan, Dakar, anywhere else?
Chad, depending on how you include Chad into West Africa.
Will you pay attention to my presentation?
It's like you put Cameroon into West Africa, it's Central Africa.
Now, there's a good reason for that. And she's sitting on my left-hand side, so don't argue with me, Andrew, please. Where were we? Okay, no, we were not in Chad. Yeah, Bamako, Abidjan, Dakar, been there, well, Abidjan's relatively new, Dakar, Bamako, been there a long time. Lomé came and went, we won't dwell on that one. Would you say you are able to make as much inroads into those markets as you can in Francophone West Africa?
It's not us being able to make faster inroads into a country with a different language. It's really what is the potential to actually grow in those markets. So if we take Francophone West Africa, we see Abidjan as a tier 1 city, and we see Dakar as a proactive market. So those will be the two cities which we think we can have the most potential. So Abidjan, we think we could have all our brands present in Abidjan over a period of time. We have 1 hotel open. We're currently negotiating another 5 in Abidjan at the moment. And we think within the Ivory Coast we could possibly go go to one other location. From a
Another 5 hotels in Abidjan.
over a period of time, Trevor, not
Oh,
immediately.
so you're opening tomorrow? Oh, okay.
And then Dakar is the same. We think Dakar, we should have at least 3 of our brands present in Dakar over the next 5 years.
Abidjan, Charlotte. You live there, yeah? You're based there?
Yes, I'm based there for 2 years now.
Goodness me. Okay. I've been in Lagos 15 years.
No.
So, anyway.
Yeah.
Abidjan has historically been dominated by alcohol. Okay?
That's true, like that.
Mangalis is moving in. You've got one hotel open and one under construction. Marriott have just signed 759 rooms. Accor have got another 310 rooms coming in. There's Azalai have just opened. There's, no, I mentioned that. Merton has signed. There's potentially a Kempinski coming in. That's a lot.
Well, that's always the first reaction. Actually, I think we have been in a transition period in Abidjan over the last 2 years. You had a lot of deals which are now on hold because there is no step. They are not moving forward. We had 3 openings over the last years, and now we have new deals. So the market is quite changing. All the deals you are talking about are still in the pipeline, but not at the same level of advancement, I would say. Beside that, Abidjan is a very large city with a really rapid urban development. The hotel development has been focused on the CBD over the last years, which is Plateau, like in Dakar actually. But now we start to see new points of interest in other parts of the city. I could mention Marcory, for example. I could mention Cocody, which are undersupplied zones, and that's why hotel groups are starting to look at new opportunities in those areas.
For those who don't know Abidjan, it's actually quite split, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're individual islands, aren't they?
Well, there is a huge laguna going through the city, and
but it's a bit like Ikeja, which has so many different
exactly.
discrete areas.
Yeah, Abidjan is made of 6 districts, including the CBD, and other parts are more institutional, like Cocody, and that's where the focus is for hotel development.
Okay, it still seems like an awful lot of rooms, and then we have Andrew's going to flood them out.
All these places that she's mentioned is where I'm going to.
Okay. All right.
You mean that's where you stay.
Dakar potentially capital of Senegal. I've got deals signed, and some of these are under construction for Ibis Mercure, Azalai, Park Inn by Radisson, Hyatt, Intercontinental, Golden Tulip, Scene, Yas, Sheraton, Aloft, and Days Inn. That's why that bar was so huge. That's again, I mean, this is a huge number of rooms coming into Dakar. Is it going to grow that much?
Okay, for the Dakar market, one just has to understand the general, the country and what's happening in the country. To understand that for Dakar, the government has invested tremendously in the recent past, in the last couple of years, in trying to congest the city of Dakar itself. So there are quite a lot of these developments that are signed, but not in the central area of Dakar. With the new airport way outside of the city. There's quite a long distance between, and the new airport is due to open this December, I think this December the 17th or thereabouts. Is it the 6th or the 7th? With the new airport coming up, the whole objective of the government has been to decongest the city. And so some of the new hotel developments planned are actually in places like Temnatu, and with the view of trying to address the demand that is going to be generated there by the relocation of several ministries and seats of government or central parastatals of government that are going to be relocating to Temnatu. And beyond that, also, you're going to have a lot of corporates, embassies, etc., moving out of town as well, generating demand outside of central Dakar. And if you look at how the actual city of Dakar has performed recently in terms of headline numbers, occupancies are at an all-time high right now, because the demand is just that strong. Dakar is a city of 1.1 million people. Occupancy is right now at about 80% on average. Because of the demand-supply balance. So moving out and creating new assets outside of the central area or core city of Dakar is something that the government has aggressively pursued and is reaping the results right now. So what we are seeing is by moving out of town, we're going to see the numbers in Dakar come down slightly, so adjust and normalize over the next couple of years, and occupancies and average rates, which are about $140, $150 right now, also picking up in other areas where today there's almost absolutely no activity. So in my view, it's actually not too much because of the way the government has strategically addressed the issue of expansion and moving out of Dakar.
Yeah, the interesting you raised the thing about moving the airport. It's moving southwest, I think, of the centre of Dakar. So what happens in the centre? Up with the old airport, you've got the Yas Hotel is up there, the Honorbo Hotel is up there. In terms of the pipeline, you've got the Sheraton and the Aloft coming up there. The Sheraton is the conversion of the old Club Med. You've got the King Fahd Hotel, the former Meridian. So what's going to happen to those hotels that are under construction, the Sheraton, the Aloft, when the airport moves?
Well, right now, like I said, the numbers that we're seeing in Dakar right now are a bit on the very, very high side because, on average, 80%, average rates are very strong, occupancies are very strong, ADRs are very strong. So what we're likely to see is more or less a normalization, so to speak, in terms of the headline numbers in the city of Dakar. Definitely new hotels coming into the market are still going to do quite well because obviously it's impossible to relocate the entire city. It's a city of 1.1 million people. It's, again, the government is investing into port infrastructure strategically with a view of positioning Dakar as a regional hub for trade. And it's also an access point for landlocked countries in the region that surround Senegal. So we still see a very strong demand in the central areas in Dakar in the next couple of years. But then we're going to begin to see a rise in other markets outside of central Dakar.
So Trevor, I think, not that I know Dakar that well, but moving the airport, the current airport is really in prime business district. So moving the airport where they're moving it to now, which is I think 54 or 56 kilometers outside the city, you're really unlocking prime real estate to be converted into commercial offices and other activities. So I think the hotels that are really close to the airport right now, where they might have had some airport business, they're going to have other business which is going to be created in that precinct, more private sector stuff on on really valuable land that was really in a wasted area of Dakar.
Okay, Wesam, I think your first hotel in Almaty is in Dakar, isn't it? The Arts. That was your first hotel? Or?
That was the first hotel we opened in Almaty, indeed. It is exactly like about 10-minute drive from the airport. I absolutely agree with Andrew. I mean, moving the airport outside of the city is a great plan, which Dakar was expecting this since 8 years, I believe. But the old airport will be continuing to be the hub of cargo. That's mean there is another type of business increase will be coming. But also I think that the government is doing a lot of efforts to attract big incentives like they did the last couple of years. And these, that's going to be the main activity in that area. I do not believe that the hotels which are coming up or already existing, they will be losing business. I mean, the King Fahd, they will be definitely investing. We have a huge success hotels because of the simple fact there is no good product on the market for this type of hotels. So we just opened the door and it's doing fantastic.
Okay, thank you. Danny, Andrew, Cameroon's here because there has been some tickling around about who owns what bit of land down there between Nigeria and Cameroon, going quite a long way back. So Cameroon, this is your specialist topic, isn't it? Tell us about, you've got Douala and Yaoundé. What are the current markets like? And then we'll talk about the pipeline. What's going on in those two cities? You don't hear that much about Cameroon, actually.
Yeah, so I feel like I actually find Cameroon to be very similar to Nigeria in terms of the people. I feel very much at home in Cameroon. I find, the language, the people, there's a lot of similarities that we have there. The culture too, in terms of entrepreneurship as well. Douala is mostly business focused, so there's a lot of oil and gas, telecoms, financial services. The government is pushing a lot of infrastructure work, so there's a lot of construction and contractors active in Douala. The bulk of the hotels of relevance are probably number about 5. There's only 2 international brands present in Douala, and that's Pullman that was converted from a Le Méridien, and then there's an Ibis, which does pretty well. The Pullman is not in the best shape. It's in dire need of renovation. So there's been a lot of activity from local investors, high net worth investors typically, who are building independent hotels. There's currently one in another part of town called Bonapriso, which is a high-end residential area, and it's actually doing the best in the market so far. It's a small 70-room boutique-style hotel that's doing even better than the Pullman is in Douala.
There seems to be a trend there that they are more comfortable when they're building big hotels, good quality big hotels. They seem not to want brands.
Yeah.
The Juga and the Crystal Palace, is it? They seem to have no intention of having a brand, despite the fact that they're big hotels.
Yes, and I even find that there's an owner who's building what you would call his own chain of brands. It's the La Falaise. There are 2 currently in Douala. There's one that opened a couple years ago in Yaoundé, and they're building another one in Douala, in Bonapriso, close to the airport. So in essence, they're going to have about 4 major hotels that are doing pretty well in the markets there. I think it's evidence of the fact that the market there is more price sensitive. There's not a lot of depth in the market, in the demand that can pay high prices for hotels. So Le Méridien, which is now the Pullman, they had a lot of the air crews, they had a lot of the corporates that were coming into Douala. A lot of that market has been lost to the new independent hotel there, because they'd rather get the value for money than pay the high price for a brand.
Right, and Yaoundé?
Yaoundé is pretty much a government town. It's similar to Abuja. It's mostly dominated by government, and of course Cameroon being a key market in the Central African region. there's a lot of hosting of events and conferences and delegations, so there's a big conference market. The only brand, the only international brand there is the Hilton. It's the only 5-star hotel in the country, and they basically they kill the market. They're doing well in terms of occupancy, and their average rates are about at least 40% higher than the next best performing hotel in the market.
And as far as we know, there's no pipeline in Yaoundé, so.
Yeah, pretty much.
Branded,
There's one that's signed, but there's no activity.
Yeah, a bit like Abuja, actually, where we do have projects signed but no plan. But down in Douala, we've got a Hyatt, Radisson Blu, Noon, and all those three are at quite a high level. And then the Onamo at the economy level. Those are signed deals from our pipeline study. Are we again talking about oversupply?
I don't see the oversupply because yes, there are those deals signed. There's about 800 rooms signed to come into the market, but I was there and a couple months ago. I did not spot any substantial activity on this site. There's maybe 2 of them that are supposed to have gone on site, but I didn't see any activity. The only activity I see in terms of new construction are the independents. So the Joga Palace, it's a local high net worth individual who already has a hotel in Yaoundé. He's building another one in Douala. There's a local high net worth individual as well who's built hotels in a hotel in South Africa. He's building his first 5-star, 250 rooms in the, I guess, more retail-focused district of town in Accra. Those are, you would say, relatively actively being constructed. La Falaise as well is an independent brand that's also building a third one. So those ones I see activity. The brands I don't see any activity.
Charlotte, I pressed you about Abidjan recently. Abidjan, as you all know, of course, is not the capital of Côte d'Ivoire. Yamoussoukro is the capital. In the previous section about the Anglophone of West Africa, we talked about how Nigeria has scale, how it has many different cities here. Ghana, a few. Other countries like Liberia, Sierra Leone, it's one city, basically. Côte d'Ivoire does have other cities, doesn't it? Yan, Bouaké, San Pedro, Yamoussoukro. Is anything happening there? Is there a development opportunity in secondary cities? Sorry to call the capital of the country a secondary city, but you know what I mean.
You're 100% true. Actually, Yamoussoukro is the capital city, but well, everything happens in Abidjan. Institutionals go there for one day and come back to Abidjan. It's more about local business, I would say. So I wouldn't focus on Yamoussoukro, even though there could be opportunities there for a few segments, like economic and budget, I would say. But I would focus more on the coast. San Pedro is the second city in the country. There is a port there with a strong activity.
There was a port, did you say?
There is a port where all the cocoa business goes through. So it's a really important place in Côte d'Ivoire. The problem is that the road infrastructures are really bad in Ivory Coast, well, especially between Abidjan and San Pedro. So I would say that the multiple city hotel development in Côte d'Ivoire is limited by those bad road infrastructures. But as soon as it gets better, I strongly believe in this opportunity. In top of San Pedro, yes, indeed, you mentioned Bouaké, Korogo, Mans. Those are secondary cities where they could have opportunities for budget hotels, you know, when we talk about commercials driving around the country, for example. And in addition to that, I believe that Côte d'Ivoire is has one of the biggest potential in the region for leisure tourism. The coast around Assini, Bassam, Sassandra, which is closer to San Pedro, those are strong spots for resorts. But again, now it's more focused on Assini and Grand Bassam because there is a highway. And Sassandra is quite limited right now by these bad infrastructures.
Interesting, Michael Cooper from Hilton in the Anglophone session said how he thought that the resort product in West Africa was vastly underdeveloped. Is this for a local market or for the flagging from Paris?
Well, rather for regional markets. Ivory Coast benefits from a very strong regional air connections with Air Côte d'Ivoire. So first, the focus would be on regional market. Senegal is well placed for attracting tourism from Europe. Senegal, Cap Verde, Gambia, etc. But Ivory Coast still has a bad image, I would say, from Europe. You know, for example, that Club Med left during the war and doesn't intend to come back in the next years. So the country is more focused on regional tourism from West Africa, East Africa.
But Air Côte d'Ivoire has really taken off, isn't it? I saw them in Abuja last week.
They have direct
flights.
flights.
Abuja.
Impressive, huh?
Yeah.
Direct flights to Abuja, well, everywhere, pretty much everywhere in West Africa, more and more in Central Africa, and they intend to develop further in East and Southern Africa. France has now shares in the company, and it has accelerated the development. Yeah. So it's really interesting. Like Senegal intends to launch Senegal. It helps a lot in the business, but as well, I assume, for the leisure tourism.
Well, Cameroon has huge opportunities in leisure tourism. Is anybody from Cameroon in the audience? Anybody married to anybody from Cameroon? Girlfriends, boyfriends? Well, I'm not going to be rude, it's just they don't seem to do very much.
No, I mean, they promote themselves in theory as this country, which is basically all of Africa in one, and it's true. It's very diverse in terms of the tourism, attractions that it offers. There's, like, we didn't talk about Limbe and Kribi, which are port towns, but huge opportunities for resort developments there. Nothing is happening up north, Garoua, where there's a lot of tourists coming. There's some tourists coming in from Europe, mostly Asia as well. They come into Douala and then they head up north for more adventure tourism, and there's opportunities there to develop resorts, leisure hotels, but nothing is happening.
I mean, there's a whole thing about the African Cup of Nations, which is being held in early 2019. And, like 5 years ago, I was talking to people there who invited me over to talk about how many hotels they were going to build, and they haven't built any.
But what has happened is, because of that tournament, government for the first time is open to facilitating business in Cameroon. So we've been trying to break into Cameroon for 10 years. We signed a deal in the last 30 days in Douala, and it's a conversion of an office of a government building, where the government is very open to the idea of going into a long-term, very soft lease, having a developer come in and actually convert the building into a Radisson Blue, so that it actually can open prior to the African Cup of Nations. We've got 3 or 4 other opportunities in Cameroon. We've had no opportunities in Cameroon for 8 years, and because of the African Cup of Nations, we suddenly have opportunities. You can actually speak to government, you can actually do things. So
It's lastminute.com yet.
sure, it is lastminute.com, but the point is a tournament like that has actually woken up the government officials to actually support hospitality. So there's grants that have been given for the first time. Your planning approval will get put on top of the pile, not at the bottom of the pile. Won't get lost in the system, where for years and years and years things just got lost in the system. And it became an exceptionally frustrating place to try and do business.
Isn't it?
I think that the trouble with this flurry of activity leading up to the games is what happens after the games. So demand is not going to be as strong after those couple months when the games are held, and then there's maybe your challenge of oversupply.
But most of those hotels weren't open, so you're still going to have, at least you've got, so our Radisson Blu we think will open. It's only 155 rooms, it's a combination of hotel and extended stay, so but not every hotel is going to open. So I think at least the tournaments made the government aware of the opportunity and how important hospitality and tourism is within its country. So Trevor, I've got to fly to Senegal.
Oh, sorry to keep you, Andrew.
To open a hotel.
Well, the rest of you please stay. Our panel's falling apart, but no, I appreciate you. Okay, safe flights. See you. Oh, very rude. Topic, can you talk about anything else like Dakar? In our pipeline data, we've got a new clubhead to be built and an extension to the existing one. Senegal, they're going to promote tourism again, because it used to be a big French destination.
And yes, absolutely. I mean, the government has invested quite a lot in trying to encourage increased levels of tourism to the country. Currently, it does well as a tourist destination. Probably not as well as Abidjan, but it does very well. In the rankings, actually, in terms of international tourist arrivals, it's actually 3rd, so I think it does better than Abidjan. It's actually 3rd behind Cape Verde and one other country in the West African sub-region. So tourism-wise, it does okay. The government is trying to, from a policy standpoint, strategic standpoint, encourage more tourism, reducing airport tariffs, shortening the length of processing times for visas, visa applications, etc. So basically making it easier for regional tourism to happen beyond the traditional international tourist arrivals that we see from France, which still remains very strong. So in other cities, in other places in the country, Sabi is a destination in terms of the potential there. There's tourism potential there, and we're going to see more investments going into Sali, going into Diamiadio, obviously because of what the government is doing to try and promote expansion outside of the capital city, and also because of the tourism potential for the south as well.
Okay, outside of the capital city or the main city, West South, as far as I can tell, all your deals are capital city or primary commercial city. Are you looking at some of the places Charlotte described, or other cities outside of the main cities in West Africa?
Definitely, this is the next step for us. We are starting always by the capital, and then we have another presence, namely in Dakar. We are involved even in the bigger development with the government together in Diamadio. But also we have another development which is going on also in Salil. I fully agree with you. Senegal has been hit a couple of times in the last couple of years by natural disaster like the monsoon that came in, then the Ebola, and then also like some decision which was like challenging a lot tour operator. So they lost on the international market, especially on the German-speaking market. I remember a couple of years ago that the visa which took place suddenly has hit a lot of the tourism in Senegal. I believe that right now the authorities are doing a lot, not only to focus on the creation of new jobs and new opportunities, because Diamadiou is in a perfect mixed-use project, which giving a lot of opportunities for
That's the new city next
The
to
new
the
city,
airport
yes.
in Dakar.
The fact that the airport is delayed since so many years was like complicating the development of Diamadiou. But right now I see absolutely a green light at the end of this tunnel, because that's going to be like a lot of villas, a lot of development of real estates, hotels, an entire governmental area with whom we are involved with our mother company, which is Telium Properties and Telium Constructions. So I see definitely that Dakar will be within the next 3-4 years for us one of the main hubs with different property into the city and also outside.
And what you've got 3 brands, Yunxin and Yas. If you're going into a secondary city, what brands could you take there?
I mean, we are also the very proud owners of the Radisson. I'm sorry that Andrew is not here. The Radisson Dakar belong to the Telium Group, so it's part of the group. We are going into a residential. That's going to be like the next one coming up in Dakar is a scene residential. It's a converting of a building for 48 keys, a building which was ongoing for a long time with, let's say, average residential area. We will be definitely going into a new type of residential. But on the other side, we have advanced discussion to develop even resorts in Saly, but also in Sal and in Gambia in conjunction. Because I personally truly believe that the tourism to Senegal will be coming back. As my colleague has mentioned, the government is really doing a lot, and also the investment from Air Senegal. They are putting 2 digits of millions of US dollars with renovation of the float. I think that the connectivity will be improved, the visa situation will be improved, because Senegal can and will defend their position in that area to be the hub for the area.
Thanks. I'll take, if there is any questions from the audience, I'll take
Thank
one.
you for the contributions. I have one question about one particular segment in hospitality, which is service department. I think you touched upon it. What's the opportunity there?
Not only in Senegal, in the entire West African coast, a big part of the business. It is not only a trend, it is an absolute requirement. I would like also to reconduct this question for our expert of Cameroon, because I see a lot of these opportunities also happening in Cameroon, namely Chinese construction company and investor going there, having like an assessment of long years empty standing building to be converted to service apartment with some facilities and services around it. I personally believe this is a trend, and this is definitely going to be giving the requirement for the travelers and the new arrivals coming to the area.
We've done a study in the last, I think, 2 years about the service department opportunity in Senegal. And the outcome of that study was that yes, there is a very, very strong opportunity in what I would call extended stay accommodation in Dakar. That's because that segment of the market is not particularly strongly represented. And there is a very strong opportunity there. We looked at the project there and did a study of that market. I still think, though, that the opportunity is more in the area of mixed use, so you probably want to put it together with other more traditional offerings. And in the context of a mixed use, where you have flexibility in terms of use, so you could use it as either extended stay or regular short-let hotel rooms, then you have a very, very strong opportunity. That's probably the best way to go about that kind of development in Dakar.
So yes, you are right. There is an opportunity there, and even some of the recent projects that I've seen in Cameroon, a lot of them are incorporating service apartments into the design. So the Carlson Residor that we talked about earlier, that was just signed for Douala, is going to have a certain component of service apartments. The Hyatt project that you mentioned that was signed is going to have some service apartments, and I've seen a few other designs for other projects that are going to put that in. And you can tell that there is a depth of demand there because of the nature of the business demand that comes in. It's a lot of the contractors who are typically long-staying guests. And if you look at Airbnb for Douala and Yaoundé and for many of the markets, there's a lot of supply, which is even more than Lagos, and I found it very surprising, but there is demand there, and I think developers and the hotel operators are tuned to that need.
Thank you. Do you want to comment on Abidjan quickly?
Well, it's the same in Abidjan. What is interesting to see is that extended stay is not anymore the thing of hotels, but you also have dedicated brands to apart hotels that are starting to come into the market. Well, Accor has the Adagio brand, of course, but you also have the group Apart City, Sim Residences, so it's really dedicated products that are starting to grow in the region, in Abidjan, in Dakar, but also even if Sahel countries like in Burkina Faso, in Bamako, those groups are, some of them are looking on the market, well, for this type of demand, business individuals that are staying for a few months, consultants.
I just wanted to clear something up.
Can we know who you are, please?
Mustafa Diaw, I would ask that you maybe go and revisit the statistics about the population in Dakar. The microphone is not working, I think. Okay. Yeah.
Working mine.
Yes, because I believe that the metropolitan area, you may have the statistics from maybe the city of Dakar, but the metropolitan area has to be at least 4 to 5 million.
That's right.
Just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you very much.
And I had a question if we still do have.
It's very quick, we're very late.
Okay, just wanted to ask about apart hotels.
We just talked
Been talking about.
Okay, I've heard the conversation about extended stays. But just wanted to know what's the pipeline like in apart hotels in.
Well, okay, let's talk terminology. Apart hotel service,
Okay.
extended stay. I can tell you that in the whole of Africa, there are of that number and there are 417 hotels. Of that number, there are six service department extended stay apart hotel branded in the pipeline, with 640 rooms between them in the whole of Africa. Okay. That tells you how little the sector has been developed. In my opinion, it is one of the trends of the future that the chains should be looking at. Adagio have just signed a deal in Abidjan. The major hotel chains, though, are not particularly looking at that sector. Why? Ask them. Thank you very much. Let's not give Andrew any more claps. I did know he was going. I was the one who told him he should go to the airport earlier than later. But can you please thank Charlotte, Wessam, Tope, and Danny? Thank you very much.